Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sirhan on X. It is Thanksgiving Eve over here across the U.S. and the world, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio. Hope everyone has themselves a wonderful Thanksgiving Eve. Everyone, of course, getting their meals and their cooking ready. I got mine going on here. Half of it done. The other half I'm going to probably finish off after the show, probably this evening, after I visit an interesting place that I like to go to this time of year. It is the PNC Festival of Lights at the local zoo here in Cincinnati. Great, gorgeous display of Christmas lighting shows uh, at the Cincinnati Zoo, right by the uh, TQL Stadium where FC Cincinnati plays. Uh, it's good stuff. Going to check out this evening. Of course, come back home later tonight. Got going to be a host for all the family for this coming Thanksgiving, and looking forward to what's coming up here later tonight. Nice day here in Cincinnati for it's time of the year. For into the high 40s temperature wise. Be busting out the suit tonight when I head to PNC Festival of Lights. Check out the lighting show over there. A couple others over in the area probably checking out. Of course, they decorated the purple people bridge over Newport. So let's check this one out. All right, then. So let's get right down to it. The week 13 matchups. Uh, Now, of course, playoff positioning is going to be taking place. So we're going to go ahead and get right down to it. The first one is, of course, actually the Thanksgiving Day till it's not really much in terms of competitions. Just games that maybe at least the 2 day games is going to probably be showcase cases for the home teams. Chicago and Detroit. Detroit's just cooking right now, and I expect that to continue. I don't think Dan Campbell's going to let the foot off the gas against a division rival. Chicago sort of hit it downward a little bit, played a little better, but I think Detroit wins this one at home. Dan Campbell is put his fingerprints all over this team, and they always respond to him. It showed Sunday when the defense just bottled up the Indianapolis Colts in that big win, and of course the Giants and the Cowboys. Neither team going anywhere, but give me Dallas at home. Giants are just basically tanking at this point after they said goodbye to uh, Daniel Jones earlier this week, who of course went on to Minnesota. I'll touch on him to Minnesota here in a bit. I think it was a good, solid move by him, giving him a chance to sort of calm down a bit and almost like relearn the game a little bit because all the immense pressure that was put on him when he was in New York. But the Giants are just an absolute mess right now, and I think Dallas, who's not in much better shape, gets to win at home almost by virtual default. Of course, the Sunday night game is the Dolphins and the Packers. Actually, a pretty decent tilt here. Dolphins fight challenging the Broncos for the last playoff spot, and Green Bay trying to stay at pace with Detroit and Minnesota for the NFC North title, which you know Detroit's 10-1, Minnesota's 9-2, Green Bay's 8-3. That's just crazy to have those three teams battling for one playoff spot, and of course the three teams going to be battling for that division and also for playoff supremacy. I think all three teams there are going to go in more than likely unless someone has a historic all-time collapse, but which was not happening. But I think for this one here, I think Green Bay even got a little rough in the middle, but I think they rode the ship. Jordan Love started playing much better. I think they get the win at home. Miami, they got Tua back, and you know him with Hill and Waddle always going to be a tough out for any opponent. But Green Bay is just absolutely uh, playing better, and I expect them to just turn it around and get this thing going. They'll land a playoff spot, and the run begins here tonight, Thursday night. So I give me the home. It's going to be a home sweep for Dallas, Detroit, and Green Bay for the Thanksgiving Day games. I'll take them. Of course, the Black Friday game tomorrow afternoon at 3 at Kansas City. It's the Raiders and the Chiefs. Remember last year around the holiday season, the Raiders had their Super Bowl win when the defense just ran all over Kansas City. Not going to be the same thing this time. They're expecting Pacheco back. So Charles Amaninu, the standout defensive end, a full practice participant this week. They're getting bodies back at the right time, and I expect this is where they start to turn it up and start to head toward the playoffs. And I think this time the Chiefs are going to handle the Raiders. I think they'll do it rather convincingly. After what happened last year on their home field for I think it was Christmas around the Christmas. Don't think that's not fresh in their minds. I think they're coming back and making a statement and taking care of business this time. They're getting bodies back, and they're going to. I expect them to finally get together and get going as they push for the playoffs and their potential history-making three-peat. So give me Kansas City tomorrow at home against the Raiders. Now for the early games, uh, Houston at Jacksonville. Houston's been hot and cold, uh, but Jacksonville's going nowhere. I think Houston bounces back and gets a win. They're still going to win the South, maybe by default because nobody else is really standing out. But I don't know how they would still. We're going to find out about them here soon because they have big games at Kansas City and home to Baltimore for potential playoff seeding. We'll probably see how good they can be because it started off real well and it sort of hit a muddy patch. Of course, losing Stephon Diggs for the year and having Nico Collins out for the while didn't help C.J. Stroud. And their O line is absolutely been abysmal at best, and that might be being kind. But I still think Houston goes in there and handles Jacksonville because Jacksonville is just basically taken for a high pick pretty much at this point. Indiana at New England. Colts trying to stay with Miami and Denver for the last playoff spot in the AFC. Uh, Going against New England, which nothing's happening. But I think Indy just mucks up an ugly win. Neither team really much. They're going to muck up an ugly win, and I think Indy's going to be the one who wins this. Tennessee at Washington. Tennessee's going nowhere. Washington, of course, lost a couple consecutive games to Philly and Dallas. So questions now starting to rise about them. I said all along Washington just basically overachieved at this point by getting to 7 wins because people didn't expect them to win maybe 4 or 5 games, but they're going to get number 8 because I think Tennessee is going uh, again tank for a pick. I think Washington stays in the race for still for the NFC East title with Philly, which Philly already has a tiebreaker there. Who knows? And I think the offense and defense start to get it going here a little better against a Tennessee team that's tanking. Washington's going to get their 8th win of the season after this one. It's the Rams and the Saints. Saints are basically just crash and burned, and Rams, coming off that humiliating loss of the Philadelphia Monday night, still trying to fight for that NFC West title spot with San Fran, Arizona, and Seattle, which is turned out to be a pretty good race right now. I think give me Matthew Stafford with those 2 standout receivers, Nakua and Kupp. I think they find a way to just get the job done in New Orleans. New Orleans, of course, at this point, you might as well just crash and burn after just salary cap mishap after salary cap mishap after salary cap mishap. It doesn't get you anywhere at this point. Now for the late games, it's Tampa Bay at Carolina. I think Tampa Bay is sort of right the ship. They got Mike Evans back, got the big win in New York. They go to Carolina, momentum carries there. Baker Mayfield just playing exceptionally well right now. Actually, one early game I missed. I should add this. It's Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Better head coach, better defense, at level style quarterbacking in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh gets the win. Now back to the late games. The big one here, of course, is Philadelphia at Baltimore. Basically almost similar styles when you watch these 2 teams play. Eagles probably have the better, maybe defense of the 2, given this at least numerically, because there's been times this season where Baltimore's defense has failed to show up. I mean, I think I'm correct, like 31st against the pass or something like that. And with that personnel, that roster, if you have that's basically inexcusable. I mean, I know why for a while the Ravens fans were calling for Zach Orr's head, especially after letting Cincinnati run 30 plus twice in their 2 meetings. Just something I still am looking for an explanation for. But I think Baltimore, because at home, they find a way to eke this one out at home. It's going to be a great game both ways. Can Philly get their run game with Saquon Barkley against a run defense who's among one of the better ones? And of course, can Baltimore do the same with Derrick Henry against the Eagles' run defense? I mean, it's basically Clash of the Titans, similar styles. But I think just being in Baltimore, give me the edge to Baltimore at home. It is, of course, the big Sunday night one, a pretty darn good one here at San Francisco, Baltimore. Both Buffalo, excuse me. Buffalo is riding high after the win over Kansas. San Fran, I don't know who's going to play on their roster. I mean, what can you say? I mean, of course, I don't know who was on their roster Sunday because after Purdy Purdy was out. I think it was who else was out? Nick Bosa was out. Javius Ward was out. Trent Williams was out. I don't know who's playing this week for them, so who knows? But either way, Buffalo's going to get the big one at home. Josh Allen playing at an MVP level. That play continues. And San Francisco, I don't know what to make out of them. And of course, the Monday night tilt in Denver. It's Cleveland at Denver. Jameis Winston tries to be the field goal story for Cleveland, but they're going against a Denver team who basically is just playing pretty solidly right now. Holding on the last playoff spot in the AFC. I mean, I expect them to handle it and handle business at home. It'd be tougher than people expect because Cleveland's playing with nothing to lose right now, trying to play spoiler. But I think Denver is going to should handle business at home. I think they do it rather solidly. Bo Nick's playing much better, and of course, that defense has just been absolutely stellar for basically the entire year. So give me Denver at home. I expect them to get that last playoff spot as the season progresses. So that's speaking of the Browns. Uh, you know, so if it picks the topic here, of course, it was revealed that they decided to keep Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, and the $230 million quarterback they fully guaranteed. Here's the thing. I said it all along. They made that bed. Now they basically admitting they're going to go ahead and lie in it because they fully guaranteed this contract to this quarterback for $230 million that he had no business getting. And now basically they have no way out. They have no other choice. I mean, they can't basically cut him because you're talking about a heavy number when it comes to the salary cap it when we talk about the financials of it for the Browns. I mean, they're not going anywhere with him. Really, they're not really going anywhere without him. I mean, they do get a first round pick. Maybe they draft somebody. I mean, you talk about Cam Ward over there, or maybe even someone like a Shakur Sanders. I don't know what they're going to do, but you know, as I said, I told you guys 3 years ago this was going to happen, and nobody in Cleveland wanted to listen because they have this senile, sick-headed, deranged mindset, like an actual real life psycho. When they tell you this, they get all offensive because of it. They feel the need to defend a sex predator with his allegations. They feel needed to have a psycho, deranged, almost monstrous mindset to disrespect everybody whenever they bring up Deshaun Watson for whatever reason they see fit. But as I said, I told you 3 years ago, this was going to be the result because you forked out all that draft capital. You fully guaranteed this guy the money. And now you fully guarantee money to a guy who hadn't played a relevant game in basically the 2 years before this. The last time he was relevant, he got dog walked in Kansas City after being spotted a 24-point lead when he was starting quarterback for the Houston Texans. Had a subpar 2020 season. Of course, had his own self-imposed holdout in 2021, saying he would never play in Houston ever again, simply because of what transpired over there. And Houston basically said anybody can have him. Offer us the best package. Cleveland openly says, yep, we're going to go get you. This despite being taken to the playoffs by Baker Mayfield, having the playoff win in Pittsburgh, and nearly having one in Kansas City. And you guys in Cleveland, you psychotic morons up there in the Northeast, continue to show the world why you're basically psychotic and basically slandering Baker Mayfield after the loss of KC and wanting him out after the loss of KC. Your guys' cowardice is revealed, and now you're getting what you deserve. Now that's saying they're going to keep him. Congratulations. Swallow it. Man up. If you're not going to swallow it, get out. We're not hearing from you. You guys are officially irrelevant. And trust me, every single fan base, especially the ones in the AFC North in Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh, are laughing their socks off at you right now because they told you. You thought getting this quarterback from Houston was going to run Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow out of the AFC North. Basically, both teams basically said, we got our guys. We're keeping them by any means necessary, and they pretty darn did. You guys are getting what you deserve right now. This is what you wanted. You got what you asked for. Join the Browns franchise and line the bed you guys made 3 years ago. Don't try to weasel way out of this because I'm not letting you. And as far as keeping your head coach Kevin Stefanski, you can say a lot of things about him. Whatever. I think for that part, I mean they have no other choice. I mean he led them to the playoffs last year. with all kinds of roster baloney. Of course, they called Joe Flacco off the couch. I mean, I didn't expect him to fire Stefanski. I think it was just moronic. But, you know, that's what they do at this point. I mean, he's not, no one's going to mistake him for being John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, or even an Andy Reid. But, we talk about the AFC North coaches, but he's better than Zach Taylor. Doesn't really say a whole lot. But I can see why Cleveland decided to keep him. Try it again. Try it again next season. Run it back. See what happens. And of course, I go into the NBC website today, and one of the most, I'll just say, mind-blowing questions that I've saw that read maybe ever. Who's the greatest player in the history of the Miami Dolphins? I'll give you a hint. 30 years ago, this guy pulled off probably the greatest, maybe the greatest clutch play you could probably see in any game, known as the fake spike. If you follow football and if the answer to the greatest quarterback in Dolphins history is not, excuse me, greatest football player in Dolphins history is not Dan Marino, I'll be happy to come to your house and put you at the top of my car and send you to rehab because something's wrong with you. You think he isn't. Of course, 30 years ago today, of course, the fake spike where he gathered, tells the whole world he's going to spike it, gathers them up, basically fakes the spike, throws the winning touchdown pass to Mark Ingram with, Aaron Glenn of the Jets over him. Perfectly placed fade route over the top for the game winner. I mean, the way the NFL rules are constructed and the way Dan Marino played the game back in the 80s, he plays today. That guy probably flirts with over 6,000 passing yards because his style of play is made for what today is. So let me remind you, he had that single season pass record of 5,084 yards back in 1985 or 86. Can't remember off the top of my head, and held that record for nearly 2 decades. It took a whole bunch of different schematics in the NFL, a whole bunch of NFL rules changes on the defensive side. So basically, you can't even touch anyone for it to finally be surpassed. I believe it was surpassed by Drew Brees of New Orleans. But and put Dan Marino in today's game. Put him in today's game the way it is with his skill set, his ability to read defenses, his ability to see the blitz, and to throw the way he just ability to throw the pass rather purely better than anybody I've seen at the position. He probably would get 5,084 yards by week 12. I mean, this era was made for him. And if you give him two receivers of caliber of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle like Tua has, who knows what would happen? Let me remind you, these are some of the receivers Dan Marino had during his time. O.J. McDuffie, Mark Ingram, uh, Mark Duper, Mark Clayton, Keith Jackson, Keith Byers, just to name several of them. None of them are even close to Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. I mean, not disrespect to those guys, but Tyreek Hill is probably in terms of talent, a top 10 all-time great receiver in terms of just sheer talent. Give Dan Marino that, he basically just shatters all the quarterbacks right now. I mean, this era would be made for him. Remember, he got 5,084 yards that season when they were allowed to play defenses. Think about that for a minute. The only reason why he didn't win, he went to the one Super Bowl. The only reason why he didn't win it was because there was that fellow named Joe Montana on the other side, who's probably has a case for being the so-called GOAT. Of course, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes challenged that down the line. But his ability, Dan Marino had ability like none other. You could probably say in terms just of the word talent, just in terms of talent, maybe the most talented quarterback to ever step on a football field. His ability to read blitzes, his ability to get rid of that pass just standing in the pocket. He wasn't necessarily mobile. He stood in the pocket, had a quick laser release to where when the ball came out, it was like a laser beam that came out. That pass was so fast, his release was so fast off that pass, it was second to none. I mean, and he knew where to hit you too. He knew where to throw the pass right at the target. They were coming on anniversary after the weekend of his demolition of his performance, demolition, his performance against the '85 Bears, where he stopped the Bears from going undefeated in Miami of all places. And I'll be talking about that after the weekend because it's a, we talk about all the all-time great quarterbacks. Dan Marino is up there, and we talk about the all-time great athletes who never got the job done. Never won the championship per se. I wouldn't say get the job done because he was a hell of a quarterback. But you talk about the great athletes who never won the championship, Super Bowl, World Series, NBA title, whatever. He's up there. I mean, put him in today's NFL. the way the NFL rules are constructed today as we know it. Not every, and how wide receivers are and how pass pass plays are called today. This would be Dan Marino's league by a landslide. I mean, the dude was absolutely special. For you youngins, I mean, the footage out there on YouTube and Rumble and all these videos. Please watch it. You'll love it. So that covers my NFL topics for the day. Um, Now I'm going to get into my special TV sport of boxing. Of course, it was announced today, I guess, by the fighter's trainer, Floyd Schofield, that I can't even pronounce the guy's name, that he's going to fight Shakur Stevenson for that belt. Part of the Riyadh season on that big card, February 22. Um, you know, Shakur Stevenson, when he's on, he can be as good as anyone, but lately he's been off, even though he's winning fights, just simply because he doesn't give a darn about winning. He's just not man enough to throw punches anymore. But his luck out is he's fighting fighters who aren't man enough to throw punches either. Simply because Shakur Stevenson is not man enough to throw punches anymore, his stock is basically plummeted. He's supposed to be going there throwing punches. He's just not man enough to do it. But as far as his fighting against Schofield goes, I think Shakur is going to should probably handle business, probably get a W. Of course, William Zepeda takes the coward's way out and ducks Shakur Stevenson for a second time within a year, which we all know William Zepeda is a coward. But it is what it is. We're getting this fight. I like Schofield a lot. Has potential. Probably in the case of a little too soon. Give me Shakur on this one. I think he gets a decision. He's not going to be man enough to throw punches to get a knockout or electrify you. That's who Shakur Stevenson is at this point. Of course, part of that card involves Daniel Dubois and Joseph Parker. I think a good heavyweight tilt. You can go either way. I mean, but that's for the fake heavyweight championship because, of course, the real one belongs to Alexander Usyk. Of course, there was a photo released in training camp. He was visited by the other great undisputed heavyweight champ, Lennox Lewis. There was a picture of Lennox Lewis and Alexander Usyk. And for all you idiots out there who think Daniel Dubois is a real heavyweight champion, please look at that photo of Lennox Lewis and Alexander Usyk to see what a real heavyweight champion is, because Daniel Dubois is not a real heavyweight champion. So I put that out there for you guys out there. But yeah, the big card's coming up. Give me Shakur for that one. Of course, the headliner is going to be the rematch between Better Beeve and Beevil. I'll dig into that as we get closer to fight time. Uh, a bit of a remembrance today. It was 12 years ago today. The world tragically lost these flamboyant and stylistic Hector Macho Camacho. Guys, if you guys follow the fight sport or even the Hispanic area, you know the story here. Hector Camacho was with some friend in some place in his home land of Bayamon, Puerto Rico. Some outside some parking lot at 7 at night, which is dark because it was in the wintertime. It got dark over there out of nowhere. Apparently, a bunch of people, someone took fire shots. The guy Camacho that drove him left his car, was shot dead. I guess another shot was fired. The bullet hit Camacho in the brain. Of course, there's that daunting image that's still polarizing to me still, of Hector Camacho carried out on a stretcher with a breathalyzer, blood coming out where the bullet hit him on the side of the head. Of course, a couple of days later, when he was pronounced brain dead, the family agreed to just simply pull the plug, and that was the sad, tragic end of the great Hector Camacho. Um, I bring this up because a follower I follow on X and I interact boxing with, a very respected individual, showed how great Hector Camacho was. A lot of people still think of this or what happened to his downturn, his loss to Chavez and De La Hoya, and his wins over 40 somethings like Duran and Leonard. In terms of raw talent for that time, no one had it like Hector Camacho. You don't win 3 amateur Golden Gloves titles in the state of New York and just be nothing. I mean, when he came out of the Spanish Harlem in New York, was fighting selling out Madison Square Garden as an amateur, as a 16-year-old amateur, winning Golden Gloves titles, utilizing the ring, putting together combinations out of the southpaw stance. He was electrifying even then. The talent was there. But of course, it was later revealed, you guys know the Showtime documentary on it. Even he was living on the edge at that point. Basically, was caught stealing cars. And New York is a felony due to value. He had to do time in Rikers Island, and of course the over the edge lifestyle with alcohol and drugs basically caught up to him. Had a we talk about in life and careers the importance of a work life balance. Hector Camacho was okay with early in his career because he was younger, he can get away with it. But as he got older, it started to catch up with him. Of course, he won a title from Bazooka Lamoon and disappeared out of nowhere. Got a came back win over Louis, some journeyman named Louis Burke. You could tell the signs that everything started catching up to him. After the interview, he was crying on Tim Ryan's shoulder. Tim Ryan, the play-by-play guy for CBS at the time. Of course, he gets the big win over Jose Luis Ramirez. Problem there was, just like Mike Tyson, Hector Camacho dispensed of his father figure, a fellow named Billy Giles at the time, and signs on with guess who? Don King. And we know what happens when you sign on with Don King. I mean, that's I don't have to repeat that. But of course, for everyone who's interested, it doesn't matter what walk of life. If you're interested in a sports documentary that's basically worth watching, I pull up download the Showtime app and just pull up the Hector Camacho documentary. It's worth watching. Put together by the outstanding Erik Drath. I mean, the details, what happened, his career, his life, the ups, downs, ins, outs. It basically is a mix of emotions all over the place. People that are just remember the good times, the sad times, the bad times. I mean, it was basically a case of a guy who's slowly headed down a downward spiral. But then when he supposedly left Florida to avoid a flee prosecution to move to Puerto Rico, he really crashed and burned. Met some guy named Jamil, you remember his real name, who basically had a criminal record, and the rest speaks for itself. Of course, there's still mysteries years later why this happened to Hector Camacho. Maybe the conclusion I can come up with was because Jamil apparently had some kind of hit against him and was looking to take somebody out with him. And that's why he took Hector Camacho in that car with him and got Hector Camacho shot and eventually killed. Of course, Jamil didn't help himself either because he was shot and killed on impact. Actually, there's still the image I remember posted in the New York Post back in 2012 when the door was open. His body was just on the floor, face first. The rest of the remainders is human remains, face first on the parking lot in that area in Puerto Rico. Of course, they've been struggling to find the murderers in this. They arrested somebody, but apparently he found a way to flee a federal prison in Puerto Rico. They dropped the case, but the prosecution is pushing hard to find the case and is asking for help because they think they know where all of these people are. Let me remind you, if you watch the documentary, two of the people that were arrested are at the back end of that documentary. You'll see it. I mean, just a sad all around story. Whenever Thanksgiving round comes around for the boxing world, that's one of the things that's talked about. Of course, it basically broke Hector Camacho's mother. You can see the genuine emotion in her eyes every time she brings it up during the documentary. So, God rest the soul of the great Hector Camacho. And today, speaking of revisionist history, a little bit more of a positive side, was the third and final meeting of the epic trilogy in the south of the middleweight division. It was the end of the three-fight series between Mexican legends Marco Antonio Barrera and Erik Morales. What a hell of a trilogy this was. This was what you call a great trilogy, not Fury Wilder. This is a great trilogy. Weird thing about this trilogy is this was basically 2-1 in favor of Barrera. Forget the third fight for a second. The first two fights, it was weird because Morales was declared the official winner of the first fight, but the consensus was Barrera should have been the winner. So here you have that one. Let's go to the second one. Barrera is the official winner, but the consensus was Morales should have been the winner of the second fight. So it's 1-1 in the most unique and most boxing ways possible. Story here about this trilogy is, of course, with the decline of Julio Cesar Chavez and his reign as the king of Mexican boxing, Ricardo Lopez having retired, who's also in the conversation. These two were battling out for Mexican supremacy. It was 1-1 under such wild and strange circumstances. You fight followers know. I'll just call it for boxing reasons. And you go into the third fight, and basically it's a case of a winner take all First fight was at 122 pounds when Morales was a champ. Second fight was at 26. Even though no belt was on the line, Barrera, having beat Nassim Hamed months before, had the distinction of the real champion, despite not having a belt. And in this fight, Morales is the champ. The winner, basically, the winner of this just ends a trilogy with a 2-1 edge. Whale of a fight, action packed. Both guys going at it. That's why I love when these Latino fighters go at it. They basically just throw everything out the window. They don't care about anything except just getting out there, showing the passion, and just winning a big fight. And these two guys just let it all hang out. I mean, what can you say? Uh, Barrera had his moments. Morales had his moments. Fight was back and forth. Uh, all kinds of action, just like their first two fights, especially that first fight where it was like a face first, beat you upside the head with whatever the hell they want to beat you upside the head with in their first fight. This fight, basically to me, is a case of I thought Barrera just let his hands go a little bit more and did maybe just enough to get the win, and rightfully so. I mean, there's no, unlike the first two fights with a lot of back and forth, who they thought they won. This one here, really consensus was it was a close competitive fight, but Barrera was a rightful winner, and he was declared the winner. Um, these two guys not just had a rivalry, I mean, at times just hated. I mean, you're talking about name calling, and even before the second fight, Marco Antonio Barrera punches Erik Morales upside the head. I don't know what the reason was, and got that press conference all riled up. And but we talk about historic trilogies, you know, ever probably up there in the top 10 overall. South in the middleweight division probably supersedes higher. Better than Gaddy Ward because there was more on the line. Certainly better than the 4-fight series between Israel Vasquez and Rafael Marquez because these two guys were legit and were at the highest level of all high levels. This third fight was basically a action-packed thriller when two guys who basically despised one another at the time just let it all hang out to close that tremendous trilogy in the super featherweight, junior featherweight, and super featherweight divisions. 2-1 Barrera. Again, the first fight and the second fight, it's all kinds of hoopla who really won. Third fight, Barrera was the right winner. Basically, end of the trilogy. Of course, after the fight, uh, basically they still at the time disliked one another, and of course the promoters Bob Arum and Oscar De La Hoya despised one another for whatever reason. But both guys still went on to have distinguished careers. Both guys are amongst all-time great Mexican fighters. We consider the deep culture of and depth of all-time great Mexican fighters: Julio Cesar Chavez, Salvador Sanchez, Ricardo Lopez, Juan Manuel Marquez, Ruben Olivares, Lupe Pintor, even the more modern one today, Canelo Alvarez. These two guys are in that conversation. They both brought lots of thrills and excitement throughout their careers. And that 3-fight trilogy they had, that's concluded 20 years ago today, was basically the apex of it with these two guys. I mean, both had intense skill and high level will, something you don't see much in the fight game, especially with American boxers. But what a hell of a trilogy this was. Of course, many years later, everything dissolved and they became good friends. And now they share a Mexican podcast over there in Mexico called Unround Moss. I don't even know how to pronounce it because I can't speak Spanish. But those two are now buddy up with a Hispanic podcast and have some good stuff over there. I mean, they talk to a lot of Hispanic fighters, even some American fighters I saw, and promoters, because I saw Shane Mosley and Bob Arum on there. But what a hell of a trilogy between two standout all-time great Hall of Fame Mexican fighters, Marco Antonio Barrera and Erik Morales, that completed today. Boy, I wish we could have fights like that again, where basically both guys have said, the hell with it, we're just going to throw down. Because that's what these two did in their 3 fights. I mean, we talk about Mexican supremacy getting to that next level because it was a void after Julio Cesar Chavez hit his decline. Of course, the tragedy a long time before was Salvador Sanchez and Ricardo Lopez, who retired undefeated. Granted, he was in the lighter weight class, but of course later on Juan Manuel Marquez came into the fold after this trilogy. Juan Manuel Marquez beat Barrera. Erik Morales ducked him for the longest time, which nobody knows the reason why. But what can you say? In the 2000s, Barrera, Morales, and Marquez, and Marquez now brought the Mexican boxing back on the map and basically put it at another level with thrills, chills, excitements, big wins, whatever you name it. And they certainly did their part. Kudos to all three guys for sending yourselves to a top 10 all time great Mexican fighter list. I mean, if they're not on your top 10 list, I don't know what the hell to tell you guys. So that concludes that. Of course, news came out today that Tio Lopez, who's probably irrelevant right now because he wasn't made enough to knock out Steve Claggett, wants $2.4 million to fight Devin Haney or a rematch with George Kambosos. Now he wants a 55-45 split of pay-per-views. Question I is who the hell said this fight was going to who is he going to fight this pay-per-view worthy? Because right now Devin Haney's stock took a hit after his loss to Ryan Garcia. Or loss. We know what happened there. Ryan Garcia doesn't have the balls to quit doing drugs. And of course, the second part of it was this is George Kambosos basically got shut out twice by Devin Haney, but his stock really plummeted when he got punked by Vasyl Lomachenko last summer. I did a watch along with a good guy over in Britain. Hope you're doing well, GM Boxing Chat. And I don't know what he's trying to gain out of this because first he wants Terrence Crawford. He wants to go up to junior middleweight and fight Terrence Crawford. Then I guess it comes out there was some boxing event where Terrence Crawford just smacks him upside the head, and basically Tio Lopez, I think, just changes tune. He stopped saying he wants Terrence Crawford. I never felt this guy for the longest time. He gets these mid-level knockouts against these mid-level fighters. He got lucky he beat a now downturning Loma, which basically the fight was past its expiration date. He beats Josh Taylor, but Josh Taylor was basically a shop-worn fighter after his tough fights against Jack Cottrell the first time, and of course Regis Prograis. I never dug this guy. I don't know why people do. I mean, this guy basically now is clout chasing because he's been left out in the cold. Maybe if you would have knocked out Steve Claggett like you were supposed to, maybe you wouldn't be. But here you are. Now you're putting the blame at your promoter Top Rank for whatever reason. You called out Terrence Crawford. Problem is, you and Crawford were on the Top Rank banner not too long ago. You had a chance to fight Terrence Crawford while you were on the banner, but you were a coward without the balls to call out Terrence Crawford while you were on the Top Rank banner. You still haven't explained that. And no, I'm not giving you credit for a knockout win over Richard Comey way back when, because that was just an irrelevant knockout at this point. I mean, right now, people like to use the phrase clout chase. That's what that is what Tio Lopez is doing right now. I mean, you were even called out by Brian Norman Jr. You don't even have the balls to fight Brian Norman Jr. I mean, let's get that out of the way. As I said, you were on the same top ranked banner as Terrence Crawford was. You had a chance to call him out for a fight. You took the coward's way out and refused to. While Terrence Crawford was just cleaning out the junior welterweight division and then eventually wasted Earl Spence Jr. I don't know what to make out of you anymore because I don't think anybody in the boxing community does because you're officially irrelevant. You were hot trash when you carried Steve Claggett the distance, which you still haven't explained why you did. You still can't legitimately explain why you let George Kambosos beat you. I mean, you were floored seconds into the fight, and now you want a rematch against him. I mean, you can say a lot of things about George Kambosos. Kambosos doesn't have to rematch your ass if he doesn't want to, because he beat you fair and square the previous time, and you had the belt, and it still eats you alive that you weren't man enough to beat him that time while using garbage excuses like a chicken. Congratulations, you're officially irrelevant. I don't care what the hell you do. I mean, when Terrence Crawford smacked you upside the head months ago, that's what I needed to know. Amazing how we have these weird storylines in sports and all walks of life that's worth talking about all of a sudden. I mean, Jeez, Pete. Some of these, I don't know what they are. I don't know if they're selling points or clout chasing or whatever the freaking word you guys want to use these days. But give me a break. Some of you guys need to grow up a little bit in these communities. I swear. I had to deal with it here in Cincinnati with Bengals fans, but then again, Bengals fans don't know how to grow up to save their lives. I've put up the same thing. In the boxing community for years. They don't know how to grow up. Jeez, you give me something to talk about. I don't mind it. It helps me out. I mean, I'm sitting here. I'm just doing nothing. Work a job where I work 12 hours a day. When I do, I come home, I eat, and I sleep. And sometimes, of course, now I do this. Sometimes I feel like when I tell people I have a live stream coming up, I try to limit what I like to talk about because I like to keep things simple. People give me more things to talk about. Have at it. I'll gladly give an analysis and an opinion because that's what I am. I'm just an analysis. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. I write sports articles for we like sports.pc.com every now and then. Great. I have a couple. I was guest on some other shows not too long ago. Great. Want my opinion? Great. Have at it. I mean, I said all along. I said all along. Be careful what you ask for me because I'm not gonna say anything to put a smile on your face. I'm not gonna back down from it. That's one of the things I've had to learn over the years. In my regular career to now. Why? Because sometimes, in order to be successful in all simple ways, you got to be honest and tell the truth and let them have it. And if you have to hurt some feelings, so be it. Sometimes you have to be a better man and tell the truth than be a phony and tell a lie just to make friends. Doesn't work that way in this world. You got to tell the truth. Got to be honest with what you say. Got to be honest with how you analyze things. Because I've always said in the world of analysis, the world of analysis, and I've been an analyst in various not just sports but other aspects of business. You got to understand how to obviously you got to learn how to troubleshoot. You got to understand point to the spot of the problem, and you got to learn how to analyze it. But also when you look at the whole big picture, come up with a reasonable conclusion that basically is just a win for everybody. Even if it makes the right people mad, so be it. It's about getting the problem solved correctly. It's about being able to diagnose and understand what it is that's being looked at and what's being talked about. And you have to learn how to come to the right conclusions. Too many people in our community are coming up with in the sports communities and basically all walks of life, especially here in Cincinnati when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals and Cincinnati Reds. I've come up with the wrong conclusions that these two eyes have seen. That's my analysis. You guys can't put together the right real reasons for why things happen the way they do. You guys feel the need to get on these platforms and feel like the need to sell yourselves and clout chase and attention seek in some of the most narcissistic ways I've ever seen. And that's why I stay here and do my own analysis. I just intake everything everybody says, let it digest to the brain, let it think, and then come up with my conclusion. But I'm going to say this again. I don't care if you like it or not. I'm going to be honest and truthful to you because for the longest time, I've had people honest and truthful for me, and sometimes I couldn't take it. But you can go two ways with it. Use it as a learning tool and grow up, or just take it as it is and just whine like a little baby and do nothing about it. Plain and simple. Boy, I love doing analysis again. I love doing this years back, but I sort of blew it in a lot of areas. But it's okay. I'm back here and I'm back here for good. I'm just going to remind everyone. I don't care if I love you. I don't care if I hate you. I don't care if you love me. I don't care if you hate me. I'm just going to tell it like it is. Whatever it is. I'm going to let my eyes do the seeing, my brain do the thinking, whether you guys like it or not. Plain and simple. And that will wrap up daily and weekly edition of Sirhan on X. I will not be having the show till after the weekend because we know what's coming up. It's Thanksgiving Day, especially here in the States. Of course, you guys follow me on the platforms. I will tell you, I will have photos of where I'll be going to here in a couple of hours. It is the PNC Festival of Lights in Cincinnati. A pretty cool lighting show. I got to tip my hat off to the people that put that together every year. I mean, they do a phenomenal job. I'm going to be there tonight. I'm going to probably be in a couple other places checking out. You'll probably see me on the platforms. No, the show won't be live on it. I tried it once with a live stream last year. It was a bad fail. But there will be no Sirhan on X for the weekend. I will be interacting with you guys. So I just hope everyone out there has themselves a wonderful day, weekend, especially if they're celebrating Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Eat as much as you can. Get as fat as big as you can. Just just eat, eat, watch football, and enjoy it. It's always a great tradition this time of year. That's what this guy's going to do starting tomorrow. I do have some cooking to do. Of course, I have other things on top of it. But until then, I hope everyone out there has themselves a wonderful day, week, weekend, and holiday. Enjoy it. Take care of yourselves. God bless. Eat all you can eat. That's what I got to say about that. God bless everyone.